Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher. 735 is tomorrow. My God, where did this come from? We expected it to be at least another week, as we noticed they were doing extended maintenance this week. Usually that means they're putting all the files and stuff in for the official launch next week, but that's not what's happening. They're just launching with this thing tomorrow. The surprising fact about this is many people who've been testing the PTR, I've been on there reasonably regularly, not a lot because there wasn't much to test besides the leveling stuff. We're expecting at least another round of testing, certainly with the leveling stuff that's coming before they went live, but Blizzard thinks they've nailed it, so we'll wait and see what happens. But there is a number of undocumented things going on tomorrow that aren't in the official patch notes, which I'm showing you in the background. So the leveling system is changing. The scaling system that we have in Legion is now being implemented across everything in WoW. Now, what that actually means, we did show this off in a video a few weeks ago, is that the minimum band to get into a level, or to start getting the quest from level, that still remains. But from that point onwards, the zone will level all the way up till cap, so you can level there as much as you want, which is quite cool. Within the boundaries of that expansion, I want to make that clear, within the boundaries of that expansion. Now, the issues people have brought up here is that in some cases, even doing every single quest has resulted, even up until last week, with people being below the level required to go to any other zone. Now, some people reported that they just about made it. Some people have been 1 level under. Some people have been 2 or 3 levels under, which is a huge discrepancy, which we could probably put down to people not knowing that what every quest is. But there are people saying that, look, I've completed the achievement for this quest in this zone, and I do not have the levels to go to anywhere else yet. Now, we've got to assume they're going to fix that issue, or they have fixed that issue, but that is something you need to be aware of, is that you might have this weird time where they're expecting you to throw more dungeons in. Along that similar vein, heirlooms are being rebalanced. They're still keeping the XP bonus, but now the stats are a little weaker. I'm not seeing that in the patch notes. It's entirely possible they've removed that change. The PTR is currently down, so I can't double check it. But that was the case, is that heirloom stuff wasn't having as many stats, so it had less of an impact on your leveling experience. Now, we'll talk about the overall leveling experience in a moment. Another thing that a lot of people expected to happen, or what they thought this was going to work, or the way they thought this was going to work, isn't actually how it works. So you now get your choice of expansion to level in. And with that, I mean, once you hit like level 58 or whatever, you now have the choice to go to Outland as you traditionally would, or you could go to Wrath of the Lich King, and those two run concurrently side by side, and then past that you can go to Kata and so on and so forth. Now, people expected to have their choice of expansion to level in, and that should provide enough experience to move on to the next banding. That does not appear to be the case. I want to be absolutely clear, that does not appear to be the case. Again, this is as of the testing, is it does appear that if you choose Wrath of the Lich King, if you could do all of Wrath of the Lich King, but you're probably still going to have to go and do some Outland in order to move on to the next banding. Now, I know many of you are thinking this just sounds like a lot of a longer leveling experience. Yes, and this is why the feedback is, this is a little bit of a controversial change, because as many people have pointed out, and this is where I stand on this, I am fine with the first time through being a sort of lengthier experience. Like the first time I play the game, sure, I'd probably be more interested in leveling, but after I cap, and certainly after I get things like heirlooms, right? Once I've got all this gear to make this process faster, it's unlikely I want to spend as much time or struggling to cap a character, because I just want the capped character. I'm not bothered about the leveling experience. Certainly if we're on like the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th time through, I'm not that bothered. Which led a lot of people to say, can you not just make it that if we have heirlooms, then the experience is kind of similar, if not the same as we had previously? And if I choose not to do that and I want to take part in a longer, lengthier, more involved leveling experience, then I can do that. Blizzard says no. Blizzard says no to that. So what they're doing is, with the scaling, is mobs aren't going to be one-shot anymore. People are reporting regularly running into bosses, let's say even Ragefire Chasm, where you're used to just demolishing the boss, the worm boss, before it does anything. Now it's going to actually be able to go down. It's going to do some of its mechanics. I'm kind of okay with that. I like that in dungeons, but if I'm going to be out in the open world, I mean, I've leveled, you know, many characters over the course of my life. I'm not into a slower leveling experience, and there are many people in my boat where there is other people who leveling is basically all they do, is they cap a character and they start again rather than get involved in the other half of the game. And for those guys, they're looking forward to a more immersive, engaging experience. I know a lot of my friends have been capping their characters as quickly as possible before this came in. I just hope they've ironed out those issues with it. I really do hope they've ironed out those issues with it. Ulduar Timewalking is coming. Again, I'd always reiterate this, is similar to the past Timewalking stuff we've had with like the Black Temple, is don't expect or even be under the impression this is going to be anything like it originally was. It won't be like that. The fact of the matter is, even from a character's talent standpoint, they're also radically different in how classes are played and the abilities they have, that it's going to be a totally inferior experience, but hopefully a little bit more similar to what you would hope to have fun in. I thought Black Temple was a success, but I only did it twice on live. That was about as much effort as I wanted to give it. Similar with Molten Core, I only ever did that once. I had fun with it and then left it there because it wasn't the Molten Core that I was used to. This isn't the Molten Core I originally did. It had some similarities, but not really. And similar with the Black Temple, we smashed through that in pugs relatively quickly, which is what this content is designed to do. You're designed to get in there with a pug group and have relative success in there. So that is still a lot of fun. So there's a lot of other new stuff, but I want to focus on the important parts here. The legendary items. So we talked about this in the TDP, is that they changed the price and they were up to 1,000 on the PTI. It looks like they've brought them down again to 175 Awakening Essences, because I know many of you were pissed when you saw that Blizzard changed the price of buying legendary items to 1,000. And in the official patch notes, this has gone back down to 175. So that's much, much better. 1,000 seemed way ridiculous to me. You never know. They might smash it back up again, but it's highly unlikely. This is the official patch notes for tomorrow. 175 seems reasonable to me to go side by side with legendaries. We are at the end of the expansion now. People are obviously going to be thinking about re-rolling, certainly in preparation for allied races coming, and they don't want to be hindered by the legendary challenge that awaits them. It's very off-putting for a lot of people. I know for myself, even having a selection of legendaries on all my alts is committing to a reroll and not just knowing that I have everything should I need it, is definitely off-putting. Really off-putting. I'll take what I can get and I'll keep going, and I'm trying not to engage too much in that. And I'm sure for many people, certainly those who are still in the mindset that certain legendaries are an absolute must, otherwise the spec is unplayable, having this backup so I can regularly, if I put some effort in, I'll be able to just get legendaries very, 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 very quickly, alongside naturally picking them up, alongside maybe having a character that already has all the legendaries, so they're picking up extra ones as well, is you could probably flesh out a spec relatively quickly, certainly far quicker than we could ever do in the past. And for that, I'm all for. 175, I think, is pretty reasonable for an actual legendary item. I mean, I'm all for just giving them away at this point. Like, I think it's, but I also believe Blizzard probably, in their mind, thinks of it as the only remaining carrot in the game to keep people logging in regularly for the vast majority of players who are hunting oranges down, and people who want to collect them and farm them all and have all that kind of stuff. I mean, AP is kind of non-existent now, so having the legendaries as the last carrot to keep the content relevant seems relatively good to me. On that note then, the Mythic Dungeons change. A lot of people saw this coming. If you watch the Mythic Invitational Tournament, you won't be surprised by this at all. So they're going to change the way combat res works inside Mythic Dungeons. You'll now start, it's going to be exactly the same as a raid, is that you start with a charge of 1, and then over the course of the dungeon, you'll accumulate an extra charge every 10 minutes. All combat res spells now share a single pool of charges with a maximum of 5 charges. So if you didn't watch the Mythic Invitational Tournament, I suggest you do if it comes up again. It was a lot of fun. Really interesting to see exactly how prepared a lot of groups were and how unprepared other groups were. I also think that's interesting to see that the really top-end guys would just leaps and bounds ahead of even the other guys who also competed to be in the top tier of Mythic Dungeon Raiders. But it definitely favored groups that had a lot of combat reses. It favored them very heavily who could bypass or continue to kill a boss. So certainly if you're doing a timed run, not wiping is a very significant time boost, right? Having someone die isn't as punishing if you have several people who can resurrect them. So if you're bringing warlocks, you're bringing druids, and you're bringing death knights who can all bring them back to life, then maybe you're going to get over those hurdles, even though you should have technically wiped. You can have like 3 people die and continue to pound away at the boss and gradually get it down, whereas now you're not going to be able to do that. So really a change for the high end. I'm sure it will have some trickle down effects into the lower dungeons, but this is a bigger change for people who push really high keys and are certainly bypassing mechanics by having people just die to it and then just get resurrected because their party composition has more reses. It also favors those non-combat res capable classes who at the very top end were being pushed out in favor of somebody who was carrying an extra combat res because that allowed them to get over certain hurdles. So all in all, I think that's pretty decent. 735 looks to be really interesting. There is some slight controversy. The leveling thing, I think, is going to cause a huge outcry once people actually experience it, and they're used to a certain pace of leveling, which is smashing through everything. I should also know here that experience potions were removed on the PTR. So if you were used to leveling using the experience boost potions, they're gone. That's not in the patch notes either. So where that is, I don't know. I have no idea why that's not in the patch notes. I would have expected it to be there, but currently it is not. So I'll look forward to seeing your feedback on that. We also have a new quest in Silithus, which involves the Antorus wound for the people who know what that is. No spoilerinos for those who don't. Ladies and gentlemen, 735 tomorrow. Enjoy.